This film, known as the Korean remake of The Invisible Guest, proves that a great remake isn't just a copy but a complete rebirth. With a runtime of only 105 minutes, it delivers a staggering 43 plot twists. This mind-bending nested narrative constantly keeps the audience second-guessing their own intelligence. Netizens even joke that if your IQ is under 100 you won't be able to keep up. Directed by Yunxi, the film stars So Ji-sub, Kim Yoon-jin and Nana in a powerhouse ensemble cast. Though it's an adaptation, this is far from a simple carbon copy. While it retains the masterful narrative structure of the original, it weaves in the delicate emotional depth and sharp social critique unique to Korean cinema, passing the cold restraint of the original with its sheer emotional intensity. This ensures that the twists are more than just intellectual surprises. They are emotional gut punches, earning widespread acclaim from fans and critics alike. Now follow me as we dive back into this suspenseful masterpiece. Inside a luxury hotel suite, Yo Min-ho wakes up to a throbbing headache, only to discover his secret lover, Kim Si-hye, lying in a pool of blood on the bathroom floor, completely lifeless. It's an unable to grasp the situation. The police, alerted by an anonymous tip, suddenly burst through the door. The investigation reveals the door was deadbolted from the inside, and the windows were sealed shut, leaving no trace of a third party entering or escaping. To the police, this is undeniably a classic locked room murder. As the sole survivor at the scene, Yoo Min-ho naturally becomes the prime suspect. With the marks on his wrists and his fingerprints all over the murder weapon, everything points the finger at this successful entrepreneur. Despite Yoo Min-ho's insistence that there was a third attacker in the room, his defense rang hollow in the face of the overwhelming physical evidence. Leveraging his immense wealth, Yoo Min-ho managed to secure temporary bail. In a desperate bid to turn the tide, he hired Yang Shin-ae, a legendary lawyer with an undefeated record in the industry. Renowned for her perfect 100-win rate, she is Yoo Min-ho's only hope for an acquittal. On a dark snowy night, Yang Shin-ae arrived as scheduled at Yoo Min-ho's remote mountain villa. She bluntly pointed out that the police's chain of evidence was nearly complete, and conventional defense strategies stood no chance. She demanded a full unreserved disclosure of all the facts from him, as every minor detail could be the key to his survival. Just then, Yang Shin-ae took a phone call that brought a startling piece of news. The police had received a formal whistleblower report claiming that Yoo Min-ho was involved in another crime. This sudden development made the already tense atmosphere even more suffocating. With no witnesses to the locked room murder, this report clearly pointed toward an older, darker secret. Yang Shin-ae produced a missing person flyer showing a young man named Han Son-ye. The moment he saw the photo, Yoo Min-ho's eyes flickered with a subtle guilty avoidance, a fleeting reaction that did not escape Yang Shin-ae's sharp gaze. She knew then that this was the true starting point of the entire mystery. Under Yang Shin-ae's powerful presence and relentless logic, Yoo Min-ho's psychological defenses began to crumble. He decided to confess the past he had so carefully buried. According to Yoo Min-ho, it all began 2 months ago with a secret mountain tryst with his lover, Kim Si-hye. On their way back to avoid being seen, they chose a secluded back road. That moment he told Si he wanted to break up, believing that their illicit affair had to end. Distraught, Si became increasingly agitated while driving, causing her to swerve to avoid a deer that suddenly darted out and collide with an oncoming car. The other vehicle was heavily damaged and its young driver Han Son-jae was killed instantly. Min-ho claimed his first instinct was to call the police, but Se-hee adamantly stopped him. Se-hee argued that if they involved the police, their affair and the accident would be exposed in that case. Min-ho's family and career would be utterly destroyed. Led by Se-hee, they decided to cover up the crime. Just as they were about to leave, their car unexpectedly stalled, and a pickup truck happened to pass by. To avoid suspicion, Se-hee thought on her feet. She stepped out and staged a scene with Min-ho, acting as if they were settling a minor fender bender. They successfully deceived the passing driver. Once the danger had passed, they hid Son-jae's body in the trunk of his own car and split up her. Min-ho was tasked with driving the car containing the body to a remote lake to sink it, while Se-hee stayed behind to wait for a tow truck. However, waiting, Se-hee encountered an even bigger problem. A helpful man, claiming to be an auto mechanic, offered to fix her broken down car and towed it back to his home. At the mechanic's house, Se-hee accidentally spotted a photo of Han Son-jae. She instantly realized she was in the home of the victim's father. To make matters worse, the mechanic dialed his son's number, and that very phone began vibrating inside Se-hee's pocket. The last second, he managed to slip the phone under the sofa cushion. He barely managed to pass it off. The mechanic didn't find the phone, but as he was seeing Kim Si-hye off, he noticed that the driver's seat had been adjusted. This unusual move planted a seed of suspicion in his mind. After Liu Xinghao met up with Kim Si-hye, he heard about this harrowing ordeal. They agreed that for the sake of safety, they would cut all ties and scrap the accident vehicle, letting the case remain an unsolved mystery forever. However, Han Song-ye's father refused to stop looking for his son. He reported it to the police, providing clues about the suspicious woman he met on the road. Following the trail, the police traced the car to Liu Xinghao's company. Though Liu used his powerful legal team to stall the investigation, Kim Si-hee ended up on the wanted list and in the news. Driven into a corner, Kim Si-hee contacted Liu once again, frantically demanding that he fix the situation. According to Liu's account, it was Kim who produced the wallet she'd stolen from Han Song-jae and proposed a devious plan. By using Han Song-jae's personal information, they framed him for embezzling a massive sum of money from the bank, casting him as a financial fugitive who fled to avoid prosecution. Liu used his resources and power to successfully pull off the scheme, completely misleading the police investigation. The case was closed with Han Song-jae labeled as a runaway thief. Thus Liu shifted all the blame onto his deceased mistress. He portrayed Kim Si-hee as the mastermind, while he was just a weak, passive victim dragged into the mess by his lover. He claimed that they were later blackmailed by a mysterious person who clearly knew the truth about the accident. The mysterious man lured them both to the same hotel room, demanding a massive amount of hush money. While they were waiting, the police unexpectedly appeared downstairs. As they panicked and tried to flee, a mysterious figure struck Yoo Min-ho. By the time he regained consciousness, Kim Si-hee was dead, leaving him as the sole suspect. After listening to Yoo Min-ho's statement, Yang Shin-ae sharply pointed out the logical inconsistencies. Why didn't the blackmailer take the money? How did he vanish from a locked room? And who was the one who called the police? Yoo Min-ho's version of events fails to explain any of these points. To ramp up the pressure, Yang Shin-ae proposed a bold inference, flipping the entire narrative to construct a second version. In this version, the mastermind behind everything is Han Song-jae's father. His grieving father refused to give up after the police investigation led nowhere. Instead, he launched his own hunt for the truth. He discovered that his son's disappearance was linked to Yoo Min-ho and Kim Si-hee, could not accept his son being falsely accused of fraud. Thus he devised a meticulous plan for revenge. He first took photos of the accident scene and recorded voice-disguised threats. He sent these recordings to Yoo Min-ho and Kim Si-hee, luring them to the hotel. One of the hotel cleaners was actually Han Song-jae's mother, the wife of the auto mechanic. She used her access to help her husband sneak into the room and hide in the closet. Once Yoo Min-ho and Kim Si-hee walked into the trap, the mother called the police. Upon hearing the signal to act through the wall, the father emerged from the closet, knocked Yoo Min-ho unconscious and killed Kim Si-hee. He then forced Yoo's fingerprints onto the murder weapon to frame him. Before the police arrived, he escaped to the adjacent room through a window his wife had opened beforehand. When the police entered the room, his wife locked the window amidst the chaos, perfectly staging a locked room murder case. This reasoning is not only archaic, but also provides a perfect solution to the locked room mystery. Yang Shin-ae then points out a way out for Yoo Min-ho. Since the person seeking revenge is Han Song-jae's father, his motive for killing Kim Si-hee is crystal clear: to avenge his son. As long as Yoo Min-ho insists that the cover-up was all Kim Si-hee's idea and that he was merely an accomplice, then Si-hee's death becomes the father's punishment for the mastermind. To close this logical loop, the most crucial step now is to find Han Song-jae's body and the location where the vehicle was abandoned. If the police find the body and confirm Kim Si-hee was the mastermind, Yoo Min-ho will likely be able to walk away from this murder scot-free. However, even though Yang Shin-ae has laid everything out for him, when it comes to revealing the location of the body, the ultimate secret, Yoo Min-ho shows an unusual amount of hesitation and distrust. Hesitation causes Yang Shin-ae to completely lose her patience. She bluntly points out that Yoo Min-ho's lies are no longer tenable, and immediately overturns all the reasoning she just established. She presents a third version, the one closest to the truth. Yang Shin-ae points out that Yoo Min-ho's previous narrative contains too many inconsistencies, such as the falsified account. Such a complex operation is more likely the work of a powerful entrepreneur rather than an ordinary photographer. She produces a medical report showing that Kim Si-hee suffered from severe anxiety after the accident. This is the complete opposite of the cold and vicious image Yoo Sung-ho portrayed. Thus Yang Shin-ae completely flipped the roles of the story's protagonists. So, in this final version, it was actually Yoo Sung-ho who was driving that day. It was Kim Si-hee who wanted to break up while Yoo Sung-ho led the cover-up. Terrified of losing everything, it was Yoo Sung-ho who refused to call the police. He was the one who stuffed the body into the trunk and took the wallet, and he was the one who orchestrated the plot to frame Han Song-jae as a fraudster from beginning to end. Kim Si-hee lived under the weight of her conscience and immense fear. When she found out she was a wanted woman and neared a mental breakdown, she chose not to spiral further but to seek redemption instead. She contacted Han Song-jae's parents, confessed the truth, and decided to meet Yoo Sung-ho at the hotel to persuade him to surrender together. He had alerted the police in advance, hoping that with their intervention, everything would finally be brought to light. However, with his empire about to crumble, Yoo Sung-ho was driven into a desperate corner upon learning of Si-hee's plan. He did not choose to turn himself himself in. Instead, he brutally murdered his lover, the only witness in that hotel room, and calmly staged the scene to suggest the presence of a third person, even going so far as to smash his own head against the glass, all to disguise himself as an innocent victim. Faced with this reconstruction that almost perfectly mirrored the truth, Go Sung-ho's psychological defenses completely collapsed. He finally believed this lawyer possessed extraordinary, almost godlike capabilities, and was the only lifeline that could save him from his predicament. To get the lawyer's help in disposing of the final physical evidence, he finally confessed, and revealed an even darker secret. It turned out that by the lake that night, he discovered Han Sung-jae was still alive in the trunk. He was still breathing faintly. The dying young man was pleading for help. To eliminate any loose ends, Yoo Min-ho brutally beat him to death with a wrench before pushing the car with the body inside into the freezing lake. Hearing this brutal truth, Yang Shin-ae's body trembled uncontrollably. Suppressing her grief, she demanded that Yoo Min-ho sign a non-disclosure agreement and mark the exact location where he disposed of the body. Yoo Min-ho marked a spot on the map and reminded her to find the murder weapon the wrench left in the car. Just as Yang Shin-ae was about to leave, the heavy snow outside made it impossible to start her car. While they were waiting inside, Yoo Min-ho happened to compare the signature Yang had just written on the NDA with the one on the documents from the law firm, only to find a massive discrepancy in the handwriting, recalling how she had pressed him for the body's location all night, and her irrepressible reaction when hearing the details of her son's murder. Yoo Min-ho suddenly realized that the woman before him was no star lawyer at all.
Yeah? No? Why are you all here?
Change the channel. Will you? I need to ask you something. Don't worry.
Liu Gi.
He's kind. You've got nerve. Good job, Mom.
I'm listening.
I know. I can be your sharpest edge touching. Your people. No one can take anything from me.
I can get all done.
Could that have been a mistake? If her identity was exposed. Yang Shin-ae dropped her facade.
She confessed she was Han Sung-jae's mother after learning of her son's death and discovering that Yoo Min-ho had hired a top-tier lawyer. She and her husband devised this plan for revenge. They intercepted and drugged the real attorney Yang on her way. She then posed as the lawyer to extract a confession from Liu Jinghao. Outside the villa, her husband, the mechanic, was using equipment inside his van to record every word of their conversation. However, the villain was always one step ahead. The moment Liu Jinghao realized he had fallen into a trap, he didn't panic. Instead, he sneered and told Yang Shin-ae that surreptitious recordings are not legally admissible as direct evidence, and more importantly, the second he noticed a shift in her expression, he deliberately marked the wrong location on the map. Having regained the upper hand, knocked Yang Shin-ae to the ground and called the police, claiming that he was being attacked. He grabbed a pre-stashed shotgun, forced it into Yang Shin-ae's hand, and pulled the trigger while aiming it at his own shoulder. By the time the police arrived, they saw an injured victim and an attacker holding a gun. Yang Shin-ae's revenge plan seemed to have failed at the final hurdle. As Yang Shin-ae was handcuffed and her husband rushed in, he appeared to have lost everything. Sitting in the ambulance, Liu Jinghao received a call from his assistant, informing him that the pickup driver, the only potential witness, had just passed away from an illness. With every obstacle seemingly removed, he couldn't help but break into a triumphant, sinister smirk. But just then, the ambulance came to a sudden halt. Confused, Liu Jinghao looked out to see a massive crane slowly making its way toward the lake behind his villa. It turns out that at the very moment she was being led away, Yang Shin-ae had shouted out the final truth to the police. She told them exactly where the body was hidden, revealing that the evidence was right there on Liu Xinhao's property. Upon entering the villa, he noticed damp bloodstains on the carpet, suggesting that Yoo Min-ho had just returned from the outdoors. Meanwhile, a landscape painting hanging on the wall depicted the very lake right next to the villa. Connecting these two clues, he boldly deduced that a restless Yoo Min-ho had just gone to the lake to personally confirm the burial site. Following his lead, The police quickly pinpointed the location as the icebreaker crushed the thick ice and divers descended to search the car that had been submerged for months along with the long cold body inside were finally brought to light. The long overdue truth surfaced and every lie was utterly shattered at this moment. By the lake, Yunxi and her husband wept in each other's arms, consumed by grief. Not far away, the smile on Yu Minho's face instantly froze, replaced by a look of absolute terror and despair. Legal judgment will finally prevail, and the story concludes here. Confession is undoubtedly a masterclass in the thriller genre. Using a format akin to a script murder game, keeps the audience glued to their seats following the verbal sparring, constantly subverting and reconstructing our understanding of the case. Another charm of the film lies in its sophisticated narrative structure. The truth is not revealed linearly, but is layered like a nesting doll. Each layer and every reversal is enough to upend the entire premise, offering both intellectual satisfaction and emotional impact. Zoe Zuk delivers a masterfully nuanced performance, vividly portraying an elite's facade, cruelty and panic through every stage of the ordeal. Kim Yoon-jin's performance, however, is the emotional anchor of the film. She blends a bereaved mother's grief, resilience and wit into one. Her stoic restraint while on the very brink of collapse is truly moving. What Yang Shin-ae and her husband did went far beyond mere revenge. They weren't seeking an eye for an eye. With wisdom and courage, they fought the crushing collusion of power and capital, finally prying open a seemingly indestructible empire of lies, allowing justice to finally prevail. In short, Confession is more than just an exhilarating intellectual battle. It is a poignant anthem to kinship and justice. It teaches us that no matter how seamlessly a lie is woven, truth may be delayed, but it will never be denied. At the bottom of the icy lake lies more than just a young victim's body. It is also the burial ground for the arrogant yet fragile ego of the elite, and a testament to the undying parental love that never stops seeking justice. And that concludes our story for today. I wish you all peace, safety, and the fulfillment of your heart's desires. Don't forget to like and follow. See you in the next one.